Hey guys, today I'm going to show you all the books that I read in the month of August. I finished one book that I started in July, and then I continued to read 8 more books. And considering everything that was going on with work and jury duty and the fact that I got a brand new phone and I now play Pokemon Go like all the time, I'm surprised I read that much. The first book I read was Oblivion by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I started this in July and only had about 100 pages left to read, so it didn't take me very long to finish this book. Oblivion is basically Obsidian, the first book of the Lux series, in Damien's point of view. Obsidian was basically about a girl named Katie who is a book blogger who moves to this middle of nowhere town and gets wrapped up with Damien and his family and their alien problems. This book follows that same storyline but in Damien's point of view. This book was interesting, but it really didn't add anything to the plot. The main reason I read this book is because I liked how the last book or two was in dual point of view between Katie and Damien, and I really just wanted more from Damien's point of view. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was My Life with the Walter Boys by Ali Novak. This story follows a girl named Jackie who has strived for perfection her whole life to please her family. But after her family is killed in a tragic car accident, she is forced to move from her home in New York all the way to Colorado to live with her mother's friend from college, who just happens to have 12 kids. And from there, romance and chaos ensue. The most amazing thing about this book was that it essentially felt like we had 13 main characters, Jackie and all 12 of the Walter children. I really enjoyed this book and I cannot wait to read more of Ali Novak's work. This book got a well-deserved 4 out of 5 stars, but now that I'm thinking about it, I may change my rating to 5 stars because I really did love this book. If you want to know more about this book, I have a review video up and I will leave it linked in the description box below. The next book I read was Harry Potter and the Cursed Child by J.K. Rowling, John Tiffany, and Jack Thorne. I'm going to start off by telling you my rating for this book, which was a 4 out of 5 stars. I know a lot of people hated this book as the 8th Harry Potter book installment, but I took it as what it was, a script. And even though there was a lot of plot holes and not a lot of character development, and I've heard a lot of people say it sounded like fan fiction, which they're right, it does, but it's a script. There's not much you can do with a script. I would have been much happier if they had come out with a full 8th book instead of this, but it wasn't that bad. If you compare it to the Harry Potter books, yes, there are a lot of problems and it's not going to compare. It'd be a 1 star in comparison, if that. But if you take it like I did as a script and just take it for what it is, then I think it deserves like a 3 or 4 stars. I mean, I really did enjoy reading it. I read it in one sitting, about 5 or 6 hours. I was kind of hoping that I'd be able to stretch it out between a few days, but once I started reading it, I really couldn't stop. I just wanted to know how it was going to end. And I did have problems with a lot of stuff. I'm not going to say I didn't. I have a discussion video up for it if you want to know my detailed thoughts about it. I will leave that in the description box below. I know people had a lot of mixed feelings about this book. Moving on, the next book I read was Divergent. And I put this book off for a long time because, as most of you probably know, I was spoiled for the ending of Allegiance. And I didn't feel like picking up the books knowing what was going to happen in the end. But I decided to suck it up and finally start this series. I actually started this book while I was waiting for my jury duty to start. I probably read like the first chapter and then continued on when I got home, and I read it in a day. It was really good, a well-deserved 5 out of 5 stars. If you have not read Divergent, it basically follows a girl named Tris who grows up in Chicago where there are 5 factions. And factions are basically where you are personality-wise, like if you are really smart, you go to erudite, or if you're really peaceful and you hate fighting, you go to amity, or if you love fighting, you go to dauntless. Or if you're like Triss, you grow up in abdication, where They're selfless. They never think of themselves, they always think of other people first. And this basically follows Triss's journey from abdication to Dauntless. And if I had to pick my favorite of the trilogy, this would definitely be it. And no surprise, the next book I picked up was Insurgents. This book also got a 5 out of 5 stars. Though I didn't love it as much as I loved Divergent, it was still a fantastic book and kept me on the edge of my seat. The next book I read was Allegiance, which I only gave a 3 out of 5 stars. And let me clarify, the reason this book got a 3 out of 5 stars was not because of the ending. It wasn't. I was actually surprisingly okay with the ending, probably because I knew it was going to happen to begin with, but that's not the problem I had with it. My problem was with the info dumps. I hated them. There was so much information just thrown at us in this last book that it was so flippin' boring. I mean, it was nice to know all this stuff, but did we really have to learn it all in one book? Then there was barely any action at all. After the first 2 action-packed books, I expected this to be like the last book of the Percy Jackson series. Just like one big war after the first 30 pages. Another main problem was the dual point of view. It was so difficult to tell Triss and Tobias apart. I would be reading in Tobias's point of view, but I'd be reading it in my head like it's from Triss's point of view. So when I get to a part that says he looked over at Triss, I'm like, crap, I've been reading the last 5 pages like this is in Triss's point of view, not Tobias's. It just threw me off. I understand why it needed to be told in dual point of view, but it was also very frustrating because I couldn't tell the 2 voices apart. So that is why I gave this book a 3 out of 5 star rating, not because of the ending. Crap. I just realized this next book was supposed to be in my August book haul, and I forgot all about it. Oh well. 4 by Veronica Roth. I can't believe I forgot about this book. I just picked this up a couple weeks ago. I was very iffy about reading this book, especially after Allegiant, but I decided to pick up anyways, and I'm glad I did. I really enjoyed learning more about 4 and what was happening before Divergent, and it was interesting to learn that Divergent was originally going to be written in 4's point of view instead of Triss's. So I really like that. I mean, that would have been very interesting. I wonder how that would have all turned out. But I don't know, it's very interesting, and I recommend that if anyone loved the Divergent trilogy to pick up the novellas. And I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. No pun intended. The next 2 books I read were After the End and Until the Beginning by Amy Plum. This is a reverse dystopian duology, which is kind of weird, but it follows this girl named Juno who lived with her clan in Alaska, thinking that the world had ended in World War III. But her clan gets kidnapped and she goes out to find them and realizes there was never a World War III at all. That her clan had been lying to her for the past 17 years. So now she's having to find out where her clan is, what she can really trust that they told her, and try to immigrate back into the modern world. These were very interesting books, but it took a couple of chapters for me to get into the terminology, and the books were really good. I feel like Until the Beginning was more like a 3.5 stars, but After the End is definitely just a 3 stars. I mean, they were good books, but they just didn't wow me, and I don't foresee myself rereading them anytime soon. And only books that I plan on rereading get a 4 or a 5 star rating. So even though I enjoyed these books, I don't foresee myself rereading them. So these are the 9 books that I read in the month of August. And I am very proud of myself. I did not expect to read the 6 books I had planned to read, let alone read 3 more. Even if, you know, these last 3 I read were fairly short, I still feel very accomplished. And it makes me feel less bad for buying all the books I did this month. And if you guys are wondering, I did watch all 3 of these movies. I love Divergent. The movie was a 5 out of 5 stars for me. Insurgent was more like a 4 out of 5 stars because I didn't really care for the beginning of it. And then Allegiance, I don't really know what to think about the Allegiant movie. I really don't, and I'm not even sure what to rate that. As a book-to-movie adaptation, it wasn't even a 1 star. As a movie, maybe a 3 stars. And apparently there's going to be another movie after Allegiant called Ascendant, and then that movie is going to show on TV, and it's going to spin off into a television series. At least that's what I read on this one website, and I'll leave that linked in the description box below as well, because I truthfully don't know what to think about it, and I'm really not even sure if this site is credible or not. You can tell me in the comments below whether it is or isn't if you check it out. I normally just wait to hear any movie news from my brother because he's the movie expert in the family. Feel free to leave any of your opinions on any of these books in the comments below. I say a lot of you have an opinion on Harry Potter and the Cursed Child and Allegiance. Well, that is it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!